You've probably heard it a million times, right? To learn more, you've got to read faster. But what if I told you that's almost completely wrong? What if the whole promise of speed reading is basically, well, a myth? Today, we're going to dig into the truth and find a way to read that's not just faster, but a whole lot smarter.
Okay, so picture this. The year is 1960. You're watching this TV game show, I've Got a Secret. A woman on stage gets handed a brand new book she's never seen before. A timer starts, and her hand just glides down the page in this crazy blur. A minute later, the host announces a result that sounds, well, it sounds impossible.
You heard that right. He calculates it right there, live on TV. 12,825 words per minute. Now, just to put that in perspective, the average person reads somewhere between 250 and 400. This wasn't just a little faster, this was literally superhuman. So the question is, how on earth was this even possible?
Well, this wild demonstration and a whole bunch of others just like it were the work of a woman named Evelyn Wood and her super famous reading dynamics course. She was this former teacher who basically claimed she could teach anyone, and I mean anyone, to read at these incredible speeds, and get this, all while having perfect comprehension. It was a total sensation.
And so, in the 1960s, the whole idea of speed reading just exploded. But, the skepticism wasn't too far behind. As early as 1967, the student newspaper at Harvard was already raising some serious questions. And then, decades later, a book called Scan Artist came out and really pulled back the curtain, showing the whole thing was way more about clever marketing than it was about actual science.
The promise, it was so tempting. But it was on a collision course with a giant brick wall, human biology. The whole spectacle of speed reading was about to go head-to-head with the science of how our eyes actually work. And that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Can the human eye and the human brain really process text at thousands of words per minute and actually understand any of it? Well, science has a very, very clear answer. So the promise was that you could just absorb whole pages at a glance. But the science says, nope, our eyes just don't work that way. We don't see the world in these big, wide, clear snapshots. We actually take in information in tiny, super-focused little chunks.
And the reason for this comes down to a tiny little part of your retina called the fovea. This is the only part of your eye that has high-resolution vision. The best way to think about it is like a spotlight. Only what's directly in that little beam of light is crystal clear. Everything in the periphery is blurry. And what that means is you can only truly focus on like one or maybe two words at a time. So reading entire paragraphs in a single glance isn't just hard, it's physically impossible.
But it's not just about seeing the words, is it? It's about understanding them. There's this model called the simple view of reading, and the equation is so important. It says reading comprehension equals decoding, that's turning the letters into sounds, times language comprehension, knowing what the words actually mean. And notice, it's multiplication, not addition. That's a huge deal, because if either one of those skills is at zero, your comprehension is zero. You can't just skip the decoding part and hope for the best.
This is exactly why any method that encourages you to just guess at words is so bad for you. These systems, like one called 3Qing, are actually strategies that struggling readers use. They literally train your brain to skip the hard work of decoding. A lot of speed reading techniques rely on this same kind of high-speed guessing, and it absolutely tanks your comprehension. Okay, so if racing through a book at lightning speed is a total myth, what's the alternative? Well, the goal isn't to be fast, it's to be smart. It's about shifting our entire focus away from speed and towards depth, and really understanding that different books need totally different approaches.
I absolutely love this quote from Francis Bacon because it just nails this idea. Think about it. You wouldn't eat a 7-course gourmet meal and a bag of potato chips with the same speed and attention, right? Of course not. Reading is the exact same thing. The real key is to match your reading style to the book in your hands and what you want to get out of it.
So how do we actually do that? Well, a philosopher named Mortimer Adler gave us this brilliant framework he called the 4 levels of reading. We all pretty much master that first level in school, but the real magic, the real power, comes from knowing when and how to shift gears into those other 3.
So, level 2, inspectional reading, is basically just smart skimming. Honestly, this is probably what those so-called speed readers were doing without even realizing it. The point here isn't to understand everything. It's to kind of give the book an X-ray, to see its skeleton, and decide if it's worth your precious time to read deeply. It's a tool for sorting and filtering, not for deep comprehension.
Now, for the books that really matter, the ones that make it through your filter, you shift into analytical reading. And this is the total opposite of speed reading. It is slow. It is deliberate. It's like having a conversation with the author. This is where you're underlining things, scribbling notes in the margins, and asking questions. This is where the real learning happens. This is the chewing and digesting that Bacon was talking about.
So how do we get better at that deep analytical level of reading? How do we really truly master a subject? Well, there's this brilliantly simple technique for that, and it's something used by some of the smartest people who ever lived.
It's called the Feynman technique, and it's named after the Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman. And the process is so simple. First, you just pick a concept you want to learn. Second, you try to explain it in the absolute simplest terms you can, like you were talking to a kid. Now here's the key. Whenever you get stuck or you have to use some fancy jargon, that's a huge red flag. You've just found a gap in your own knowledge. So you go back to the book, you fill that gap, and then you try to simplify your explanation again.
And this quote just gets to the absolute heart of the technique. See, real understanding isn't about using big, complicated words to sound smart. It's about being able to take a complex idea and distill it down to its simple, elegant core. If you can't explain it simply, you don't really get it.
All right, let's put all the pieces together. It's time to forget the impossible dream of speed reading. It's time to start thinking of yourself as a reader with a powerful toolkit, someone who knows exactly which gear to choose for the job at hand. So here it is, your new toolkit. You're going to use inspectional reading to filter what comes your way and save a ton of time. You'll use analytical reading to go deep on the books that really deserve your attention. And you'll use the Feynman technique to truly master the most important concepts. But the crucial takeaway from all this is simple. Your reading speed should always be changing. It should be determined by your goal, not by some arbitrary number on a stopwatch.
Ultimately, everything we've talked about really just boils down to this one question. The myth of speed reading pushes us to just finish books, to check another title off our list. But smart reading challenges us to focus on what really truly matters: deep, lasting understanding.
For more videos, subscribe to the InfoVoid.